Hello, my name is Francis Fox. I am a trained government remote viewer. I was also trained to be a psychic spy since I was a child. Um, I was also trained in all the other psychic skills, all of which I bring to the table today to bring extra information from the other dimensions so that you will have not just the information you get on the physical dimension from your regular sources, but the extra information from the other dimensions that is usually limited to religion or to power groups behind the scenes that you guys all accuse of conspiracy, and the information is not available to you. There's so much going on in the other dimensions that you need to know, especially since reality is created in the other dimensions first at the causal level. And then there's a Higgs field that's called the life web that needs to be kept in order so that you don't end up having a haunted house, a haunted business, a haunted car, or a haunted leg. All this and more I am sharing in this chat. Francis Fox, news from other dimensions, which we also put into uh, podcast in Spotify and in Apple. Yesterday, I shared an experience that I had that was so shocking that even though I had the information, the memory, I did memory retrieval of a ritual that I was put through. And I'm going to describe it again because yesterday I didn't cry when I said it. So this is good. This means that I have accepted it. So when I was sent to Cuba at age 11 by US intelligence, we ended up working with, and I'm half Cuban. This is not about Cubans. This is about a particular group of Cubans, also a particular group of US intelligence people. And there was a ritual done in which I was used for sex trafficking. I think everybody knows that by now. Where during the act of sex, the person that was having sex with me at the moment of maximum, which you would say is orgasm, the man was killed. And there was apparently a ritual going on in which his energy was transferred to me through that act of sex. Now, we need to look more into these types of things and transferences of energies because we do not know enough. I know so much, I know more than anybody else, and yet I am still in shock, and I was in such shock that I didn't really think about the implications, bigger picture. It was just what happened to me. What they were trying to do was to transfer his skills as a black magician to me. And then those same people ended up in Miami and are now part of the Cuban mafia, who are basically want me dead. But that's not the point. To go over that again just to share my misery is not the point. The point is because being it that I was able to say it and actually think and not just want to completely die of shame or horror or whatever, I was thinking transference of energy. Why is it that I know that it happened? Why did I have a hard time accepting it? Well, the horror of it, yes, but beyond that, I have a statue that I don't have here. It's downstairs, so I can't show it to you. But it's a wooden statue that my sister found in a house that she got in foreclosure. And the owners left a lot of stuff, and this was hanging on the wall. And she felt that there was a spirit attached to it because the first day she got it to her home, she could feel stuff, and she asked me to check. And yes, via remote viewing from my home, I could see that there was a spirit wandering around her living room. And she said, "Oh, I'm getting rid of that statue." And I said, "What statue?" Because I didn't know about the statue. And she said, I have a statue and I didn't like it. And I brought it home and I'm throwing it out." And I said, "Don't throw it out. Put it outdoors and I'll pick it up tomorrow morning." And I did. It did have a spirit attached to it. It was sent to the curator of the Miami Museum. We're talking 20, 30 years ago. And he said that it was 2,000 years old and it was from a burial site in Peru. That's his information. What he doesn't cover, because you're not allowed to, if you're a modern person and you go to university here, was that why was that statue together with the wealthy person who had died? Because they murdered a, a, a soldier and attached its spirit to the statue to protect this man in the afterlife. Okay, well, then what is my problem with my experience and with this group of Cuban mafiosos murdering somebody in the act of sex to transfer his skills to me? It makes sense. What's horrifying, beyond my personal experience, is the fact that there are a very small group of people who know how to do this. And the rest of us are running around as if we have control over our lives, and we don't, which is why I am sharing stuff that normally would have only been shared in private therapy sessions. We need to know this stuff, and we need to make it general knowledge so that people can know, they can have full information, and then they can make better decisions. First place, we absolutely already know that when you have sex with somebody, there is a penetration of your mind strings, of which there are 72,000, into the other person, and from the other person into you. It takes over 10 years for those mind streams, which are channels of energy back and forth, for them to let go. So for 10 years, you are recycling the life of the person you had sex with. Now, there's cuttings and things that you can do, but most people don't even know this. And when it was really put in my face was when I did a TV show and it was about sex, and people would call in and they'd ask a question, and I would answer it through my remote viewing. And a woman called in and she said, what's going on with my uterus, and how come I always have problems with my uterus and my ovaries and whatever. So when I checked, I said, you have had sex with a lot of not such nice men, and they're still hooked onto you, and you're hooked to them. I said, but I think a couple of them are in jail. So you are hooked into a lot of men, and they had difficult lives, and that's getting funneled, transferred to you. And she went, oh, you know what? That makes sense. I guess maybe she was a prostitute. I don't really know. But that was when I was like, this connection when you, through the act of sex, is something we really need to get educated on. This one night stand thing is not a one night stand. It's one night plus 10 years. People don't know that. By the way, this and all the other information is the reason I decided to incarnate into an extremely difficult life, to reach this point to be able to share. And I'm still getting threatened because power players don't want you guys to have this kind of information. So going back to what is supposed to be the theme of this chat, which is the human mind, what the human mind, and I will put up a graphic. This is my research, but I worked in research in the US military with psychic abilities. So it's not unusual that I would, interesting that that one doesn't come up. Okay, this is the whole assemblage of bodies, physical plus the energy bodies. So pay attention to the one that's gold and that has the round circles, which are your chakras. We're not going to get into a class on that here. But extended from that gold body, you see green lines. Those are mind strings, and there's 72,000 of them. And that's what connects you with people. If you have a bank account that you worry, you pay attention to, those mind strings connect to your bank account. If you have a kid that you're obsessed about, you have many of your mind streams that hook onto your kid, and they are multidimensional. So when your kid is in another city, in another country, your mind streams will extend all the way over there. The bad part of that is if you're a helicopter mom, the way I was almost forever, you're funneling your problems into your kid. So if you're a helicopter mom, it means you're scared. So what did I funnel into my children? A lot of fear. I didn't know this. That's why I'm here, to share this information so that we don't keep repeating the same mistakes, and maybe we can spend some time on the really fun stuff, and maybe we can enjoy ourselves rather than being miserable human beings, which most of us are, not happy campers. My controller in the military used to say that human beings need to keep themselves busy as they waited to die. And that is actually true for an awful lot of people. We need to stop doing that. We need to get on with our mission, like Elon Musk, and then things are a lot more fun. Plus, if you're on mission, you're going to make a lot more money. You're going to be a lot more successful, whether it's money or some other form of success. So the 90s was the decade of the brain, but the brain is physical and is limited to the physical dimension. But the parts of you that continue to live once you die, the parts of you where your mind creates, the parts of you that are called the Higgs field, but in the shape of your physical body, it's called your etheric energy body. Those parts of you are multidimensional. They're in other dimensions. And they all have rules and laws and things they like and things that they don't like. And when you make them live under conditions they don't like, you start to get sick. Then alternative medicine can help you because they can tell you're getting sick before your physical body got sick. And then you have to have your regular medical doctor take care of you once this mistreatment in the other dimensions or lack of protection in the other dimensions ends up finally reaching your physical body. So knowing about your mind, which is the part of you that is multidimensional, because the other energy bodies, like your Higgs field body, is one dimension. It's the etheric dimension. Your astral body is the astral dimension. It is your mind strings that are multidimensional and interpenetrate several dimensions, connecting all your energy bodies to your physical. So if the decade of the 90s was the decade of the mind, and they spent millions of dollars across the world. They didn't, the decade of the brain, excuse me. They didn't really find, they keep finding things, and there's a lot to be found, and we're very grateful that they're finding all this stuff. But the mind creates reality. So why don't we go ahead and go to where we create rather than all the symptoms and all the issues of our creations? And that's what I want and am absolutely putting out there and encouraging everybody. So this time we have a new administration that seems to be listening to interesting people that are not in the traditional path of the modern life that has really made us all so miserable and so sick, so unwell. Um, so it would be good that this new administration make sure that there is funding available for work and research, not just research, but having to do with the mind versus the physical brain. First place, your mind extends to every inch of your body, and your brain doesn't. It can send impulses and do all sorts of things, but it doesn't extend there. So I'm encouraging all of us to break with our addiction to the physical, which is what has us here where we are today, and to widen the lens into the other dimensions, which means we have to learn more about the mind. One of the really hilarious things that has happened in the last several years for me was when I realized that this multidimensional herb called cannabis, which is where marijuana comes from, when they did the studies on cannabis in the 92 was when they published the results. They said that the humans have a system called cannabinoid receptors, which is a system that takes cannabis and does this miraculous stuff with it, heals so many different things. Cannabinoid receptors are human mind streams. So cannabis is miraculous for the human mind. Now, the human mind becomes sick, mentally sick, when there's too much heat. It's too hot. When you have a hot head, you're on your way to be mentally ill. The cell phones held narrow to the head, all the Wi-Fi. That's why 40% of our kids are classified as mentally ill. But the cannabis reduces that fire, because cannabis is an herb that's a female herb. I didn't know male herbs were and plants were male or female. I did some research, my own remote viewing research, not what other people wrote. Cannabis is a female plant, and its big talent or gift is reducing fire. So if you reduce the fire in the mind strings, in the cannabinoid receptors, then you reduce what sustains mental illness. And about 1,000 other things. So the whole thing with connect through mind streams, an act of sex, one night stand, and then for 10 years, you are reeling from that energy from that person, if that happens to be a person that's mentally ill or leads a very erratic life or ends up in jail, like this woman had a couple of her lovers, whatever, clients, I have no idea, that were in jail. So she was infused with the misery of those people. It doesn't matter how bad you are, being in jail has to be worse than being a bad person and being outside. So in terms of the mind strings, which are the human mind that everybody is looking for, and it is the basis for string theory, but don't tell that to a string theorist, because they will dismiss this because they have another concept. I believe that black holes are just very large mind streams, which means that they are channels. And the mind streams are double terminated funnels, channels, like the chalice, the Holy Grail. We have 72,000 of them. Then we have a main one. The black holes are double terminated funnels. So the scientists, the heart scientists, would be looking at that, and they're looking at string theory and strings. The mind streams are string theory, which, by the way, are in the Lord's Prayer. In the Lord's Prayer, and in the prayer from the Virgin Virgin Undoer of Knots, Knots, they talk in her prayer particularly a lot about undoing the knots of our faults and energy we hold from other people and our attachments, because the mind streams attach. And in the Lord's Prayer, they talk about releasing the strings, releasing the knots. The original Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, not the one that we were taught. The Lord's Prayer that we were taught makes us need God, need a higher power to save us from evil and other things. The original Lord's Prayer does not say that. It doesn't say that. It says, help us to be in the present, which means not disassociated, which means all your energy bodies are all aligned, and your consciousness is poured into them, and you are a solid unit, which is called the assemblage of bodies. When they say in Star Wars, may the force be with you, what they're saying is, we hope that your spirit body, which is your astral emotional body, is inside your assemblage of bodies, at which time you will be unstoppable. And that is true. We are all severely disassociated. That's why there's so much evil on the planet. So I'm going to encourage that there be an incredible focus on this particular aspect of human life, which is basically the creative aspect. Your mind, your intention creates reality. Your mind is what creates that reality via the instructions of the intention. And we need to dedicate time and attention to that, because we were constructed to create, and then we are instructed to follow. I'm not sure that I got the quote correct. We were constructed to create, and then we're instructed to obey. Kills creativity. And that needs to get figured out. How do you keep up a large society if everybody's just doing their own thing? Um, I think it's important that we dedicate time to that because our mind is what makes us sick. So the amount of money that we would be spending on healthcare would reduce dramatically. Um, I know it sounds like I'm petitioning for a job in the new administration. I'm not. I'll take some consulting contracts, but not a job. I'm too old to be tied down to a job, and I'm too old to be tied down to people that need to stand in line and work together. This is not my thing. I'm just feeling really creative about what I would want the world to be because I think maybe we're going to be able to get there with this new administration and his team. I think Trump, I think he's very conservative. The type of conservative that he is, I kind of like, but he's still very conservative in many things, traditional, the family. I like that. Um, but we have to open up to a lot of new stuff because we are in a new era. So I'm putting that out there. There needs to be paid a massive amount of attention and money spent on the mind. And I discovered it. I have the sketch of it. It matches, it fits in all the religions, whatever. And then everybody needs to take that, the piece of it they find interesting, and go out and do the research. It's not limited to me. That was one thing that I learned having to work as a child with military and scientists. First place, they didn't know about the other dimensions. They were not psychic. I was the one that was psychic, and they were cranky having to work with a child, and I was supposed to be a spoiled brat, um, which I'm neither not proud of or proud of. I know that I could get very demanding, especially if they were doing things that I was not in agreement with. I can be very determined, but the trick of the matter is that a lot of times they would ask me questions, these adults, aggressive people, and I would give them the answer and they wouldn't understand it. And I learned to sketch. So you need to know that there is structure in the other dimensions. It's not just everything flowing around and floating around and the bad guys, which are the bad spirits, darting in between. No, there is form, there is structure, there are rules, and a lot of different groups of people and religions have figured out a lot of stuff, but it hasn't been available to the general public. Like Scientology knows a lot, and they hold it back. And as I said in the podcast yesterday, the day before, when I put out my first video that was $17.99 or 95 because it was a VHS tape. It was 5 minutes, and the whole message was that voice in your head, those words are not yours. Those are spirits talking inside your head in your voice. And it's true. And most religious people kind of know that, but the general public doesn't. They shouldn't be keeping secrets from us. And somebody who listened to my video said, Scientology has that information, but they sell it for tens of thousands of dollars, and they won't give you that until like 2 years into their teachings or trainings or however it is that they have their system. So you have a lot of, and the black magicians, they know a lot. And I have told my followers, the Mantrista movement, I have said, I have learned more about the creation of reality watching what the black magicians do. When I remote view, when somebody comes in and they have black magic, they have a curse, and I'm supposed to clear it, and I do, I can see a lot of times what it is that they're doing. I don't get into the ritual part of it where too many times they kill animals. I can't do that. But I can see what they do, and it's extremely creative. And it doesn't have to be with bad intentions. You could just take that same creativity and use it for white magic, which is what it is that I'm doing at this point in this incarnation, is teaching white magic. Because the mind is magical. It creates out of nothing, simply based on intention. That's magic. Let's go ahead. Let's get that intention focused. Let's learn what distracts us. Let's do this. Let's this instrument that we all have and that we're born with, let's learn how to purify it, how to point it in the right direction, and with the intentions that we would all support, which is white magic. Why shouldn't you do black magic? I've been telling my followers, too many of whom have one foot in black magic, I've been saying, you shouldn't be there. This is not going to be good for you. We're in Revelations. Everybody's going to find out. You need to get out of there, whatever. But then I didn't really realize that when you have one foot in that world, but even if somebody does a curse on you and that curse is still on you, that's your frequency and your vibration. And that's what you're going to draw to you. That's why I tell people, if you have black magic, you need to get that cleared. You don't want to pay me? No problem. Find somebody, because you are a haunted person. And what's happening today is that a lot of people who had 1 foot or 2 feet in that world, they're not doing well because of transference of energy. The world is, we're living in a swamp. It's dark, it's dark, it's dark, it's dark. If you are relatively clean, you can be in that darkness, and like the lotus flower that flowers even in swamps, you can be like the lotus flower. But if you have darkness because you have had 1 foot into black magic, and you have darkness because somebody did black magic and you didn't even know it, you just thought you were just miserable, you have a low vibration, and law of attraction will kick in, and this swamp that we are living in today, which has never been this dark in the other dimensions, that's drawn to you, and you'll end up drowning. Everybody finds out. It's going to take down first Cuban mafiosos, who were the ones that sex trafficked me decades ago. The whole black magic thing. That is a thing where they want to cut their wrists. They want to slit their wrists because they can't stand for people to know that they do rituals where they eat each other's feces. Why would they do that? Oh my God, that's horrible. We're talking about men that dress very elegantly. Why? Because it connects them to each other. You know, the Catholic Church, you eat the bread of Christ and you drink the blood of Christ, transferring Christ's characteristics. Well, that makes sense. It's god awful. Okay? But that is what's killing them the most. That's where they just want to die. They don't want anybody to know that. They don't want their family to know that. Well, why did you do it? We're in Revelation. Did you really think you were going to get through Revelations? You're going to kill everybody? Because that's what they would like to do. They've done it before. They're not going to get away with it because we're in Revelations. So let's learn what we can from the dark side. We're not supposed to be running away from the dark side anyway. We're supposed to be there and make a choice to choose light. And it turns out that light works and the dark side is not working. And as I tell people who I suspect has 1 foot in that world, I say, listen, look at the person that's doing the rituals, the black magicians, the santero, the voodoo person. What is their life like? Do they drive a nice car? Do they go on vacation? Do they have a nice house? And how are their children doing? They don't. They don't have good lives. And when I did all the work on autism, over 10% of the children, causal was the family were into practices like Santeria, which is supposed to be a religion, where they sacrifice animals. And that's accepted in this country because it's a religion. Okay. But they also produce children with massive depressions. And they don't look so great themselves. Sometimes even the color of their skin is different because of all the darkness that comes in when they're doing their rituals. So all this magic thing has to do with the mind streams. And one of the type of curses that is used a lot is called amarres, which means they tie you up. What they're tying up are the mind strings, your mind strings in that area, the area in which they want to take you down. So the human mind strings, I already discovered it. I have a map of it. Let's work on it. Let's get the enemies out of the way, which means let's deal with the issue of the sex trafficking. Oh, the most important thing I wanted to say today. Why is it that the sex trafficking is such a big issue on the planet? Were we all that sick? That, I mean, why? There's a why. There's a bigger why. And again, this is my training. Widen the lens. Don't just stay here. Oh, it is, and it's a big deal in all the country. Yes, I know. Why? Well, there's a lot of people that are sick in sex. Why? And you keep going, why? And do you know where you get when you do that? Except I'm not sure that anybody's going to be able to hear me because I did a video on it and it went in one ear and out the other. People didn't get it. Do you know why humans have so many sexual issues? Because aliens, oh yeah, I know everybody's, oh yeah, but now Francis, where's she going? I am going where you need to open up your perception to, on the off chance that I am correct, and I am correct. Planet Earth has had alien invasions forever, but now they're really big. One set of spirits that come in via alien invasion, even the Catholic Church has them classified in their classification of spirits, and they're called the incubus and the succubus. And they have to do with sexual perversions and those people that murder and cut up the women and do all sorts of things. They all have those particular spirits attached. The Catholic Church knows that. I know that. There's people that know that. What's that got to do with sex trafficking? What it has to do with sex trafficking is the more there is sexual trauma, and sex trafficking is sexual trauma, the more you are broken to the level that would allow those particular spirits in. And the level has reached the point of planetary invasion. So, what does aliens have to do with sex trafficking? Those are just sick people, they're pervert. It has to do with a focused intention of off planet beings to take over the planet via making everybody mentally ill via the issues of sex. Okay, I said it. Were you able to wrap your head around it? I'm not sure. And a lot of that interference is from the spirits themselves because they know all about the human mind. They know what's good for it, what's bad for it. They know how to jerk you around by jerking around your mind, etc. So I'll talk about this several times to see if maybe anchoring that information, I'm saying it several times repetitively, may anchor it a little bit more. Why is this important? Because it is the reason why sex trafficking is such a huge issue. Sex trafficking may take down our entire society. That is why they haven't released these lists of people, because of how much it's going to shake up society. Well, let's shake them up. Yes, but the destruction of the society is not anything any of us want. We're going to have to do it anyway. This can't stay like this. I certainly can't live like this. And the society should not be living like this. But there is a bigger picture. There are intentions that are galactic, that are from off planet, that have to do with the sex trafficking. You will notice that when they talk about aliens, they don't tell you it was a female or it was a male. They don't, because they're not. From what it is that I know, which is certainly not everything, humans, planet Earth, we're the only ones with sexuality. So what am I saying with that? Not really sure, but I think it's interesting that people look at the aliens and they never discuss, well, is it a male or is it a female? It's like a given. They're neither. So there's a big difference between us and beings that are from other places, and we need to get this information understood. And there are people, many people behind the scenes that do understand it. The heavy duty black magic that is done by petitioning aliens that have the ability to do what it is that the ritual is asking for in the black magic ritual. You can have ancestral curses that last for hundreds of years. How can that be? How can you have a curse that lasts hundreds of years? You can have aliens who work outside of time. By the way, after the physical dimension, their time factor doesn't exist. It's just not a factor in the other dimensions. And they come in, and the petition is for 6 generations, which I think is what it usually is in terms of the Bible, what they say. And they anchor that curse, the intentions of that curse, for 6 generations or for hundreds of years, however long it is that it's. So we the issue of the different types of spirits and the spirits that originate on this planet, which means somebody dies, the spirit didn't go to the light, the spirit kind of hanging out because it has emotional trauma. Okay, it's emotional trauma. If they're very depressed or they're very angry or they're very frightened, they don't go to the light, they hang out. Okay, well, how do people die in this country? Heavily medicated, totally disoriented, frightened, angry that they're going to die, depressed that they're leaving behind. We don't die properly. That's another whole subject, which we'll cover in another podcast. So let's go ahead and get to the relaxing part of this conversation, which is a mantra and mantra music, which was composed by Mateo Cuaron and has the frequencies that will support the intention of the particular mantra. So I'm going to put the mantra that the dolphins, some of them are my spirit guides, recommended, having to do with your third eye, which has to do with wisdom and the ability to see things and perceive. So the mantra is going to be, even though I'm afraid to be a master, hopefully this is spelled correctly. Okay, so the dolphins told me years ago that the reason why our third eye is not as developed as it could be, yes, fluoride is an issue, but the root cause of why we have not developed our third eye is because we're afraid of our powers. And superpowers, by the way, which is basically the ability to create miracles, is held in the third eye. So all that fluoride and everything that is done to block the third eye is blocking our ability to create miracles, to be godlike creators, which is what the bad guys want and the bad aliens want, to block us, for us to just be flailing around as human beings and not accessing our full powers. So let me go ahead and check a music. The mantras are repeated in silence. And this mantra is, even though I'm afraid to be a master, I love and accept myself. Let's do 10 minutes. I'm going to put up the gold dress. Go ahead and check the intensity of the gold. How does it look? And then self-assess yourself from 1 to 10. And 1 is you feel you just want to die. And 10 is you feel great. Where are you in between those two numbers? And then when we finish, go ahead and self-assess yourself again, okay? So here we go. How do you feel? Don't you feel a lot better? Let me put the gold dress up. You should all have a copy of this gold dress on your refrigerator, and particularly with children. Unfortunately, most children see the dress not white and gold, the way it was designed, and it is, but blue and black, which means our children have very low frequency, which means that we are entering the age, the golden age, but they're not going to be able to see the gold because their minds have been so damaged by frequencies. And I want to give a suggestion to Elon Musk and to everybody else that might be listening. The dark spirits are very neat and they work in the mind. They know all about how our minds work. And I did not remember that there is something that you can do that makes a huge difference, having to do with being protected from evil and having to do with having less autistic children and having to do with everybody being less depressed and more focused, etc. And that is augmenting the earth element. You go, yeah, we already know that, Francis. Don't go to big cities on vacation, go to the mountains, whatever. Yes. No, build a salt room. There are across the country, across the world, there are companies or places that have salt rooms where everything, the floor, the walls, it's all built of salt. And you pay a fee and you sit there for an hour, hopefully not on electronic devices, and you get an incredible healing. And it is really good for children that have attention issues because you're augmenting the earth element, which in the Lord's Prayer originally, not the one we know, says there you don't have to be protected from evil. You need to have enough of the earth element. And salt is earth, it's crystal. So, Elon, please start putting salt rooms inside your companies where they're building the missiles, not missiles, what are they, rockets? Um, and maybe even have, when you have your creative sessions, have them be inside a salt room because the spirits cannot get there, because spirits cannot tolerate the physical dimension, which has everything to do with the element of earth. Now, why haven't I remembered that? The spirits made it their job to have me not remember that. I actually, before I had to do all this moving because of the Cuban mafia, I had a home in which I could have built a salt room there. And then the whole thing of wrapping your head around something that people don't understand, and it actually isn't that expensive. But there are places you can go in practically every city where you can go on a regular basis and just sit there for an hour. You can meditate. You can take a nap. Don't take your devices. Don't put on earphones because you're just basically canceling out a bit of the effect. But salt rooms. We would have to, by the way, put less people in jail if we had salt rooms all over the place, because you only get into trouble if your mind, your mind is too hot. And earth puts out fire. Two things puts out fire, water and earth. So we could send everybody to the beach and have them live on the beach, and then we'd have less people in jail and less people mentally ill. Or we can build salt rooms. Interesting. Okay. Thank you for joining me. And we will be back again tomorrow with another chat.